Hey, what is good, YouTube? I am just chilling at home. Just got back from dinner with my family. We smashed a Chinese buffet, so kind of got a little bit of the itis. And then I thought, hey, I should make a video. I got the itch the other night, guys. You know how when you see some content on the game and you're like, I'm working towards that. I'm gonna do it, yada yada. But man, I've been itching to get into Act 5, and mostly because the way Kabam pulled me in was the rewards. I really wanted to be uncollected so I could get those stinking daily crystals, because getting the T4 class catalysts is just hard. It's just hard to get those, and any little bit helps. And so I'm like, hey, what is it going to take for me to do this? So I started doing some research and trying to figure out if with my roster, with my resources, if I could pull this off. Because I'm not the greatest player in the game, and it's hard content. So I had a bunch of units stashed up, but I didn't want to break into those because I got plans for those later. But I am a hoarder, and in my crystals, I wish I would have screenshotted it from earlier, but the 4-hour crystals, those green ones, I had 1,800 of them stashed away. So you can see I used almost all of them up getting through Act 5. But I was able to go through most of those, and I only had to spend a handful of units at the end with the collector to get through that fight. So this is going to be a little bit longer video, but hopefully helpful to maybe some of you guys that are in my situation. If you want to get through Act 5, just the initial clear. That's what this video is going to try and walk through. At least what I did, and maybe some of the mistakes that I made, so you guys can avoid those and maybe do a little bit better than I did as far as resource wise, but then also taking into consideration your roster. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump into it. We're going to move over to story. We are in the middle of war as well, so I might have to check back in later with that just to see how things are going. So alright guys, we're going to walk through 5.1 rather quickly and then get into 5.2. So I have here because I have my other champs used up in Alliance War right now. Most all these guys on this roster are involved in Alliance War in some way, shape, or form. So I just did a simulation here of the team that I used for everything except for the final chapter with the collector. For that, we'll get into that one. I used a little bit different team. So yeah, this was the team that I used. All of them are awakened, rank 5, 4 stars, except for my Iceman. My Iceman is awakened, but he is only rank 4 because I'm trying to get the tier 4 class catalyst for him. So you can see they're all pretty high damage characters, champions, and that seemed to work pretty well for specifically 5.1, but then we'll get into 5.2 because the champions, you don't need specific champions per se, but they do have to have certain utilities for different things. So let me walk you guys through the path that I took for each one of these, and we'll try and go through it with some pace, because I know these first few ones in 5.2 or 5.1, I'm sorry, aren't going to be terrible. So in 5.1, the main issue you got to deal with is the global node, which is flare. You get 300% attack, but you degen 100% of your health, and the strength of the degen though is altered by your class relationship. So if you have class advantage, it's going to get knocked down to 50% over the 60 seconds. Instead of the 100%. So we'll walk through the path that I took. This Iron Man, well, let me show the global node info here. You can see it's this flare. Opponent gain 300, degens 100. So really the key to this was just ending the fights quickly, getting in there with class advantage, and just playing really aggressive. If you play aggressive, you will not lose health by taking damage, in the sense of you're just going parry 5 hit, bait out, parry 5 hit, bait out. just keep that cadence going, and you'll do just fine in this one. So the path I took, you can see there, was War Machine. Then I came over to Electra, came up to Hype. This isn't the easiest path, but it was the shortest. Hyperion is an issue because he's stun immune, and he has unblockable 1 and unblockable 2. But fortunately, his specials are pretty easy to bait, and they're pretty easy to evade. So just be patient on that fight. My Scarlet Witch did work on him. I don't think I got hit once. Not because I'm a great player, but because I had a good fight. I got smoked by Electra, I think. Or no, I got smoked by Iron Man. That was pretty embarrassing. I got lit up pretty good by Iron Man. I think I had Star-Lord in that fight, and I was just trying to punch through his regen, his Arc Overload, because my special 2 didn't power drain. I think it shocked or something. But yeah, Mordo messed me up too because I suck against Mordo. So yeah, Kang was really nothing special. He's noted up, but he was pretty easy to fight. If he was the boss in last season Alliance Quest, so hopefully most of you guys have some experience against him. So yeah, that's that first part of 5.1. So that chapter, don't sweat it, guys. You're probably not going to lose any resources on that. The next one is weaponized. The boss is Moon Knight. So pretty similar to the last chapter. Let's look at the global node real quick as well. I think I had to restart this chapter because I went in here with my against Gwenpool with my Iceman, and I totally got wrecked. I don't know what my problem was, but I don't know, my timing was just off or something. She hit me with the special 1 and just started cleaning me out, and I was like, you know what, it's 6 energy, I'm gonna redo it. So I went back in with Iceman and played a lot better. So basically with this one, it's a very similar kind of strategy. You wanna finish fights quickly. You want to use a high attack champ. Champions that have high health or block proficiency, like high block proficiency, like a Daredevil or a Captain World War II, would be really good here as well, because it'll give you time to break through that armor. You see on the global node there, breakthrough. This champion starts with 5,000 armor rating, but the opponent reduces their armor rating by 200 with each hit. So basically, you just need to survive long enough for that to tick down based on how many hits you're producing. But then also, you want to be doing high damage, because each time you hit them, you want to be taking away health as well, so that by the time they get down, by the time that rating is reduced, you can just finish them off in the fight. So let's walk through the path I took here. So you have to go through Gwenpool to go to this one, and then you have to go A. And so I do whatever I can to stay away from Nightcrawler. I'm not zooming out on all these guys because that would make the video stupid long. I'm just trying to outline the path that I specifically took. So if there's a path that you read through in here that you like better, hey man, go nuts. But I'm just showing you guys what I did to get an initial clear. So Guillotine wasn't too bad. The heavy hits not being interrupted, that you just got to play around, almost like a Juggernaut Unstoppable kind of thing. You just give it a second before you head back in. Might be better just to kind of bait them back into you for a parry or an intercept or something like that, instead of trying to be sweet and get through or time it just perfectly to dive back in, because then you might get intercepted on that. But just beware of her power gain and her bleed. It's nothing super special, but at the same time, you've got to play that in combination with the armor rating from the global node. So from there, we teleported to the end, and yeah, there was nothing really special about these guys. Where did it take us to? 1 second. Yeah, it takes us there, and then we had to go around. Oh, okay. And then at 7, then we had to jump back in to take on Howard the Duck. So all these fights, again, are pretty straightforward. Heavy attack champs, finish fights quickly, knock that armor rating down, and you'll be fine. Moon Knight can be kind of annoying to fight, but he was nothing particularly special in this map because he's not noded up. All you really have to do is deal with the global nodes on him, and you should make out pretty well. So cool. All right, let's jump out of this one, and we will move on to 5.1.3. Oops. All right, Iron Patriot. And again, with all these guys, I was using the same attack team for all of them. Nothing really changed for me as far as I was picking the strongest champions at my disposal. I do have an awakened rank 4 4-star OG Vision that we'll get to him, but he has his utility. He would have been good in here as well. The problem that I had with him was that for 5.1 at least, he wasn't a heavy hitter. His utility is in his power drain, not in his like him being a huge damage champion. So fights in here are going to be super long with him, and you just got to play perfect. And his utility is going to have a place, but it's not going to be in relationship to a lot of these global nodes. So this the global node in 5.1.3 is the same as the first one, Flare. So refer back to that. The strategy is pretty much the same as those first two sections. Just go in there and hit hard, right? The one unique, or I shouldn't say unique, but the new addition in this was the heal block. Special attacks inflict heal block. So keep that in mind if you have a character like a Scarlet Witch or like a Wolverine that you're bringing in. Man, you get tagged by one of Vision. Let's say Vision here's special ones, then it's going to it's going to block that heal, which is so crucial for Wolverine. But yeah, again, in this chapter, nothing super special. This one, again, we didn't take the easiest route per se, because these two champions here, the Ant-Man and the Juggernaut, have their own localized nodes on them. But they weren't terrible to me in the sense of I just went in and punched him in the face. Because I wanted to punch people in the face for this, and yeah, this Outlast is a tough local node to get through, 20% proportionate to missing health, but you just got to play well. That's the real issue here in Act 5 is you got to play well, or you got to spend resources. And yeah, I had to revive on these. I screwed up this fight with Jugs because I suck against Juggernaut. My timing always seems to fall off, especially in a longer fight, about 3/4 of the way through, and I go in too early and I get intercepted, and then I got to revive. So fortunately my stash was able to hold me up, but yeah, you've got to play well in here, or else you're going to be spending stuff. So just to clarify too, guys, like, although I say I didn't pick like the easiest paths per se because of the energy usage, and I wanted to keep moving through it all in one night, I did pick the path that I thought the champions I could deal with on there. So for example, like Sim right here, I mean, Scarlet Witch just does work on him, and I mean, I destroyed him, pretty easily with my rank 5 Scarlet Witch. But even without her, I mean, he's not a terrible opponent to fight. Now, Magic's a little bit different because she can be tough to fight, and especially with this power gain. But you've just got to do well against her, and if you have a power drain champ, she would be great, or whatever champ that is would be great against her. Just keep her below gaining a power level, and then her limbo won't kick in, and you just bait out her special one if she does go over, and she's not that difficult to deal with. It's just going to be a longer fight depending how strong of a champion you have to bring in. So bleed immunity, always, if you got a champ that's bleed immune that fits the other criteria, is always going to be super helpful, especially against this Deadpool X-Force. And then Iron Fist isn't. I wasn't too worried about him, man. So Iron Patriot was noted up. He had a couple incoming. These the Enhanced Special 2, the Kinetic Reactor, the Armor Break, the Rolling Thunder. Honestly, guys, I didn't pay attention to that stuff too much because I really don't work him into his Special 2. I bait out his Special 1, and I had Hyperion, and I just parried him and heavy attacked him till I had like 6 stacks, and then I dropped a special 3 on him, and that fight was over pretty quickly. So the Rolling Thunder might catch you in the sense that the longer the fight goes on, if he does end up catching you with something, it can be really devastating. So just keep that in mind. The longer the longer you bring that, or you have that fight going on, the greater the risk is that a special attack is just going to totally knock you out. Beside the fact that his PI is already high, and it's going to be a longer fight. So try not to take chip damage as much as you can, because he generates power with that kinetic reactor from hitting a block target. So yeah, but in my opinion, he wasn't anything special. Yeah, it's Iron Patriot. So cool. All right, 5.1.4. All right, this one was got me a little bit salty. Oops. 1 second. This was Venom. And again, I used that same team. This is the life transfer, which we all hopefully got a taste of with the Web Slinger challenge. And so remember that life steal, that life transfer is affected by class relationship. So remember that even if you go in with the class disadvantage, it's not gonna. It's going to make a difference, but it's not going to make a huge difference, in my opinion. I believe the lifesteal was 125%, and then with the class disadvantage, it was plus or minus 25%. So it's not a huge deal, in my opinion. So the trick with this one is the same with the Web Slinger challenge, right? You've got to be aggressive, right? You can't goof around baiting out a lot of special attacks. You're going to have to bait out some special attacks, but you're going to have to do them by maybe putting down like a 3-hit combo on a block target to force him to try and bring it out. So on this one, you do have to go through this portal number 3 twice, no matter what route you take. No matter what route you take, it's going to lead you there. So with this one, I ended up going to the shorter path over here. And let's look at this node so you guys can see. This was the Enhanced Special 2. And that dealt, with Strike Back. So this I didn't find too terrible, because my assumption was that most of these champs, their Special 2s weren't going to be terrible for me to evade. And if I didn't want to try and evade, I could just bait out the Special 1s. The trick with that, again, is you've still got to be aggressive enough to get that life transfer so that you keep regenning, because you can't stand there and just wait. You're just going to degen all the way down. Even if you have a high health champion, you're really just basically praying that you get lucky and hit a massive 5-hit combo that crits, so that you can get all that health back. So after researching all these paths, I determined this one would be the easiest for me, because one, it was shorter, and my style of play, I've been getting a lot better at intercepting, and with the team that I brought in, I feel real confident intercepting with Star-Lord and Gwenpool specifically. So I knew if I got in trouble with somebody, I could just bring in one of them and make the fight go a little bit more in my favor if I needed to rely on intercepting. So I've gotten a lot better at fighting Venom. He seems to be real popular in Alliance War defense and some things like that. So I brought in Scarlet Witch against him and wrecked him. I played really well against him. I don't think he caught me. No, I think he caught me once with like a 2 or 3 hit deal. But yeah, it wasn't enough to take me out. But with him, it was the same kind of thing. The life transfer was the big thing. The part that stunk was the Mystic Ward. So Scarlet Witch didn't nullify anything against him. He was armored up, and he had all of his buffs going all the time for the most part. I think I nullified a couple times because it was a longer fight, but for the most part, he didn't give me that much trouble. Just make sure when he throws that special 1, if you're not far enough away already, eat that first part of it, then as soon as it breaks, dash back to evade the rest of it and avoid all that chip damage. So yeah, this chapter, the life transfer, it's actually really fun to play because it really keeps you on your toes. You really have to be aggressive. You can't just keep waiting back and waiting for them to come into you. Sometimes you're going to have to go in and hit on them a little bit to make them proc, to throw a special at you. So cool. All right, let's move on to 5.1.1. And this was with the Electro boss. So this one here, the difficulty definitely bumped up a little bit. Both the aggressiveness of the AI and the node, the global node and the localized nodes, made it a little bit more challenging. So be ready to spend a couple healths in between fights on this one, just so you can not risk losing a champ and having to revive. So let me just read through this. Burden of Might, the global node here. Opponent's power gain by striking or being struck by their opponent is reduced by 15% for each buff currently active on them. Additionally, each time a buff activates on them for any reason, they lose 25% of their max power. So yeah, while this is a difficult chapter, I think that if you're a good enough player, you can get through it. The trick is not using Scarlet Witch. She's kind of they're gonna have a tough time in here, because the strategy is basically to pick champs that don't get buffs, and Vision is a great example of that kind of champion. Hawkeye would be another great example of that. I was foolish and I thought, man, that node doesn't, or that global doesn't sound too bad. I'm just gonna power through, man. I'll just crit on them and I'll just combo and I'll just play really well. Yeah, I did not have that experience, guys. I really struggled with this one. I died a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I just flat out died a lot. Hyperion just killed me because his power gain just killed me. There was another chapter in here that we'll get to that Hyperion was just a really bad choice. So the first two fights weren't too bad, and then you get down into this path, and I don't recall these being too bad as well. It was when I got into the, ironically enough, the Iron Man and Yellow Jacket fights that I really struggled with. All of you really just read the node, read it over and over again, and think of the champions that you can use, that you have at your disposal, that are going to be that are going to be effective without buffs. Think of the Batista challenge, right? Hawkeye was a boss for that challenge, as well as Magic. I can't recall if Magic's Limbo counts as a buff when it procs, but those would be the kind of champions that might be really effective in here. Learn from my mistake on this one, guys. Scarlet Witch and Hyperion were bad for this. I think I ended up just using Star-Lord almost exclusively for a couple, I think the short path against the Mystics, and then Gwenpool again, I used her against Iron Man and Yellow Jacket, because I still had health on her. But it was a rough chapter, guys. This short path, I can't remember who was on this skill one, but I had to walk through. You kind of got to jump around all crazy on this map. My strategy in this one was, because I'd gone to Electro and seen all the nodes that he had on him, and I said, you know what, that's a lot to deal with in one fight, especially when you're going to deal with all that chip damage, especially when you're going to deal with the global node affecting you as well with the buffs. So I knew I'd probably have to revive Gwenpool when I got there, and sure enough I did. But I said, you know what, let me, for this initial clear, let me knock out all these nodes, even though it might cost me a little more energy, let me knock out all these nodes so that Electro won't be the worst fight, the worst boss to deal with in 5.1. So that was kind of my strategy, was to take the paths that would lead me to the linked nodes and eliminate those so I could deal with Electro a little bit more efficiently. So yeah, in this chapter, guys, you got to step it up. In this one, you're going to spend more resources, and I mean, you're just going to have to play better. If you're at the skill level that I'm at with the roster similar to mine, you're really going to have to play better on this one, because yeah, you're not going to be able to make a mistake and recover in that fight. It's just gonna take you out. So all right, on to the final one, Dark Angel. Let's go check out our boy Archangel. So first, let's look at the global node in here: brute force and kinetic instigator. So the brute force, if the opponent hasn't landed a hit in 6 seconds, they begin to G-gen, losing 100% of their total health over 30 seconds. Landing a hit removes the D-gen and resets the timer. So similar with this, with some of the earlier chapters, you've got to be a little bit more aggressive, right? You don't want that timer to run out and to start the D-gen, right? And the kinetic instigator actually helps you because you generate power when you're striking a blocked opponent. So with this one, again, being a little bit more aggressive always helps. I elected to take a bit more difficult path because the node didn't sound too terrible to me, and it turns out it wasn't that bad. I mean, it wasn't easy. I think it was easier than the previous one, than 5.1.5, but I didn't feel like I struggled as much with this one. Plus, you get some cool resources if you get the timing right. You can get a full energy refill on that specific path. And I think the other reason I took this path was because it was shorter, so to speak. And you know, when I come back to try and do the complete clear on this one, it's probably going to be a little bit more challenging because they're going to have mixed in champions that I just can't stand. Like you can see him right there, Nightcrawler. That dude just pulls my card, man, every stinking time. It's just, I play him perfect, and then all of a sudden he just poofs away and 5-hit combo, and he takes 3/4 of my health, and then I'm salty and I tomahawk my phone into the couch, and you know, it's all that. So with the specific path that I took, this is the only thing that you need to know about it. Read the node again, right? Get a good idea of who you want to use for some of the fights that you on the path that you want to take. But in the specific one I took, I made a very, very critical mistake here, and that is this champion right here on a linked node is Iceman. Okay, a 16k Iceman, and I had to revive my whole team once on him because Iceman. And I feel like I played really well against him even, but when those frostbites expired, it was like 2200, 2300, and you know, you can't get around it. There's no bypass champion that I have for Iceman. I don't think there is a bypass champion in the game, I think, against Iceman. Maybe I'm wrong there. So one of you guys can comment and correct me there. But once I was able to get through Iceman, I did fine against the rest of the champions on that path. Archangel wasn't bad, to be honest with you. I mean, he's kind of a predictable champion with regard to his specials, and he always tries to throw that heavy, so just have a quick back dash ready, and he wasn't too terrible for me. I think I took him like, you know, 3/4 of the way down with Star-Lord, and then I came in with I don't know, maybe it was Hyperion and finished him off. But Star-Lord, I put him in there and I had like a 40 or 50 hit combo on him and was eating him up, and then I don't know, I got chipped by something. I think I'd gone in with only like 1/3 of my health anyway, because I think I used a bunch of that health on Iceman and Magneto to get the rest of the way there. So, but yeah, that closes out 5.1. And with this, guys, really the only part of it that I really struggled with in this specific part was Iceman, but the previous one was much more difficult. 5.1.5. Did I say that right? Yeah, 5.1.5. So, all right, let's get into the fun stuff, guys. The super fun stuff. 5.2. So this is where you really start getting tested, because every chapter or every section of it is really going to mess with you. For 5.2, there's a global node for the whole thing, which is the role reversal. So it's a little bit mind-boggling because I never take mystics in against science champions if I have the option, right? But here, so you're gonna play some matchups that you probably aren't normally used to playing, like Scarlet Witch against I don't know, Electro or Hulk or something like that. It's typically not a matchup that I see in my gameplay because I'm not going to go into the fight knowingly unless I have to with a class disadvantage. So I did a lot of research on this one, trying to pick the right paths for me to get through on this, because it's a super big map on here. It's just all spread out all over the place, so you got to scroll around and click all the things to find out exactly where you want to go. And I was also thinking of conserving energy, because I was trying to clear all this in the span of I think I did 5.1 in one night and then 5.2 the next night. So yeah, I took the short path here with the Black Panther and the Loki and the Storm, and those weren't very difficult. Let's look at this global node again. The role reversal is the thing with the class relationships, and then the power shield. The attacker's basic attacks deal no damage but still generate power, and their special attacks deal 400% more damage. That was the other issue, is that having a high damage champion doesn't help you. Having a champ that will bleed the opponent does help, but you need champions that are going to have super high special damage, damage from their specials. So the idea champion in this is Hyperion. A lot of you have maybe seen other videos from other YouTubers where Hyperion is just the monster in here. His power gain just takes him to the special 3. So just stack the Furies, drop the special 3, and the fight's over. Storm is another good option. I saw, I think Dave used his just kind of showing it off. He used his Captain Marvel, and her special 3, she just devastated the opponent. But the thing with Hyperion that's great is that his special 3, you get there so fast. His power gain just takes you right to it. And so just parry really well, stack the Furies, drop the special 3, and this chapter is not very hard at all. So I smashed all 3 of those, I think, with Hype. Or no, I used Gwenpool against Storm and got to her special 3 with the armor break, and then I just had to bleed her for a little bit, and it was over. So then I jumped over to this. It's cool how they segmented these short paths now. So I jumped over and I had to finish. I think you get ambushed right here. I think I got jumped right here by Iron Man. Yeah, I think I got jumped there by somebody. So keep that in mind. You're probably going to get ambushed if you're doing the same path that I do. Now the trick on this worm type path that they built here is that the teleport rings the teleport stations are in different spots of it. You see like A, B, so you have to jump in at different points of these. At some point you've got to do D, and you've got to do the whole thing in one run. But I wasn't going to do that on my initial clear because I didn't know how hard these fights were going to be, and I didn't want to waste a bunch of resources trying to get my initial clear. So I jumped into this one. Let me show you. I jumped into C, so I only had to deal with 3 more fights. Now, the problem with that is that you've got to deal with the nodes, or the links that are on these nodes, as well as the localized stuff. So the incoming one for this was just an ISO infused buff, so I wasn't too worried about that. And then it was just the global stuff that every other champion had that I had to deal with. So that fight wasn't too bad. I think I took Gwenpool in there because the role reversal, right? And she did work against Wolverine because she's just a real high damage champ on her specials. So I hit her. I think I hit him twice with the special 1, once with the special 2, and that fight was over. But I had to play well to not take a bunch of chip damage from him. And then the same with Iron Man here. You know, this was Hyperion. He just went in and picked him up, threw him into the ground, flew into the sky, smashed him into about 20 feet into the earth, and it was over. But Psylocke was a little bit tricky, just because I haven't played against her a lot. She's not a champion that I just got her as a 4-star. I haven't done anything. I haven't even ranked her up, and so I'm not super familiar with her. I think I got hit by one of her specials because it's delayed. It's like that delayed thing with her sword, and then she power drains you, and so she really hurt my Star-Lord doing that. But then I think I fired back with a special 2, and then I think I had to come in with Hyperion and clean her up. So this one wasn't terrible, but it wasn't easy just because you're playing with that role reversal. So even though I took Star-Lord in there against her, I had the class disadvantage in the percentages and all the stats. But like I was saying earlier, I parry a lot, or I intercept a lot better with him, I feel, and those kind of things. So it to me it felt like a better fight because I could have a champion that I was comfortable with. So yeah, that chapter was difficult because of the specials, but it was not undoable. This one I died a lot on. Yeah, kind of putting my business out there. This chapter I did not play well in. I was really frustrated. I actually took a break for about 20 minutes and got some food and ended up coming back to this one because I just got I really got lit up here. Actually, before I do that, let's look at the global node because that's really the big issue with this one. And I think this was more me than it was necessarily the node, because the champions that I was going up against, yeah, I just didn't play well against them, and yeah, I just didn't play well against them. So with this one, the global's got the power shield as well as the roll reversal. The power shield being that special attack thing. The other thing that was added in was the God Slayer, I believe. The special attacks benefit from 50% increased critical hit damage. So if you're gonna get hit by special, it's gonna do a little bit more work on you. This path I chose because it was, looking at it compared to the other ones, was gonna be the easiest in that, you know, heavy hits aren't interrupted. You just gotta wait that second while it's unstoppable. And then you can go back in and start comboing, parrying, intercepting, and all that. Or no, this wasn't the one I got wrecked on. It's the next one I got wrecked on. This one I did really well on. This one, again, you got to deal with an Iceman, but because I picked a really short path, all my champions were pretty healthy. And so coming in to deal with a Iceman and an Electro wasn't too terrible. Their links weren't awful. All they got was basically infused attack and health. So just play well. Use champions that you're gonna be able to throw the specials with that are gonna be super effective, and you'll be fine. Same with Electro. You're gonna have to deal with that chip damage, but excuse me. But with this, because of the role reversal, I had Scarlet Witch, and so yeah, you just play really well, throw that special too. I hit a 27k crit with her. I was really lucky, and that pretty much ended the fight. And then with Hood, he's not really that hard to fight anymore. If you have some experience against him, you just bait that special one, keep baiting that special one, and the fight's over pretty quick. I don't have a science champ that I brought with on this one. Or I'm sorry, I didn't need a science champ. because of the role reversal. But I think I just threw Scarlet Witch at him again, and I may have had to finish him off with Hyperion. I can't exactly remember, but this chapter wasn't too difficult. It was 2 short paths, and the nodes weren't terribly awful, even the links that were coming in on them. So I would definitely recommend that path if you guys are going for an initial clear, just to get through 5.2 and get the title. So it was the Daredevil chapter that I got messed up on. That was the one I got wrecked on. This chapter, I had to restart this one once because I went in against Ant-Man and I got destroyed, which is super embarrassing. It's super embarrassing. Who gets messed up by an Ant-Man? So again, with this one, you've got the role reversal. So I brought in Scarlet Witch, and he just devastated me. And the reason is for that second part of it, that buffet, every 7 seconds, the next buff triggered by the attacker is immediately removed. Each time this effect triggers, they regen 5% of their max health. Because of Scarlet Witch, I just kept feeding him regen. I was feeding him regen over and over and over and over again, because she just creates buffs, right? Every time she crits, it's a new buff. It's just buff, 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 buff. And so, man, I just kept feeding him. And so I was like, forget this. Forget the class advantage thing. I just need to go in here and punch him. And so I ended up going in with Star-Lord, and the only buff he really creates is Fury. So if you do that, with Star-Lord, you're getting Fury damage, and then when it triggers his regen, hopefully you're at a special, so you can just negate whatever he regens with a special 2 or something like that. So I went back in with Star-Lord and just knocked him out. But he is super annoying to fight in this chapter on this path. The trick then, now that I learned on that the hard way, was this whole thing with that global node, right? Every 7 seconds, the next buff triggered, yada yada, 5% of their max health, regen 5. The regen is what you've got to deal with, okay? So if you have champions that are high damage champions that don't generate a lot of buffs, that is going to be the bread and butter for this. So so I had to deal with a Nightcrawler that was pretty ugly. Actually, no, that wasn't ugly. I played out of my mind on that one. I was able to, in the very first parry combo set, I pushed him into swashbuckling, and then I just mutilated him with Gwenpool. I pushed him back into that corner, and he didn't have a shot. I think I'd stacked like 9 bleeds on him, and that fight I wish I would have recorded, because nobody believes me that it happened. And I would totally, if you've seen me fight against Nightcrawler, you would not believe that fight happened either, because I am terrible against him. But after taking that break, man, and coming back, this was my night, I guess, because I really put in some work on him. I was really, really happy with that. So the rest of the champs on this path weren't terrible. Be careful of Cyclops, actually. He was super aggressive. The AI was ramped up on him. He was just all over me, and he just kept throwing his special 1, and I evaded it for most of them. I remember getting clipped by 1. Yeah, I got clipped by 1 about halfway through the fight that took a lot of damage. But he was just super aggressive, man. Drax was a big disappointment on this one, because I just walked right through him, I think, with Iceman. I wanted the bleed immunity, so I went with Iceman, and I really was happy with how I played on that. So then I went to, again, I took the shorter of the paths, so I took B, and really was happy with how well I was playing. I think just a little break and getting some food in me really helped, because even though he's got a link on him and the global stuff, I just played really well against these last few champions. And like I was saying earlier, that's the trick in this, is you just have to play really well. You have to have a good night where you're parrying well, you're hitting the specials right at the end of those combos really well, like things are going good, you're feeling smooth. That's really the trick to getting through some of this stuff, because if you're having a bad night, you might as well just stop before you end up spending 1,000 units or your entire stash, because you get clipped a couple times and it's over. The fight's over. The champions are just powerful, and like I was saying, my roster, I don't have rank 4 or 5 stars to go in here and I can get hit with 2 sets of 5 combos. I don't have the roster for that. So you got to have a good night where you're playing well. So Gwenpool was amazing as always. She's super fun to fight. And then Fix It, he wasn't really anything special. He sucks. I punched him in the face. It was a quick fight. I even think I went in there with Gwenpool, so I suffered the class disadvantage just because I wanted to cut him up, and it was like a 60 hit fight. It was over pretty quickly. So that, to me, looking over this map, the path that I recommend here is definitely this one. I think it's the easiest and not necessarily the shortest, but I think it's the easiest. You do have to deal with a Nightcrawler, but it's the easiest path, guys. All right, let's jump back out, and then we are almost done here. We are on to that bottom one here, almost to the collector. This one is tricky. This one I made a really bad decision because I didn't research it enough. I was feeling super hype after playing really well on that previous chapter, and so yeah, I made a really bad decision here. So let's look at the global. Again, you have the role reversal, and with this one it introduces this new node, masochism. So every 7 seconds the next debuff that's triggered on the champ is immediately removed, and then it regens 5% of their max health. So again, this is a regen issue that you're just going to have to punch through. Okay, finding the right combination of characters or of champions for based on your roster is going to be crucial in this. So come into these like I'm doing right now. Come into the chapters, read the nodes, and then research the path that you're going to need to run, and then pick your champions based on that. Hopefully, you've got R4s and R5s that are at your disposal, because I think if you try and do that with anything less, it's going to be really costly for you. It'd be really costly. So yeah, let's walk through the path that I took. So I went to Ant-Man and then kept coming up. The local nodes that I chose were these optimism and pessimism ones, which aren't the easiest ones in here, but they were easier than some of the other ones. You'll have to read through some of the other ones and make the decision for yourself on which path you want to take to get to Storm. So again, on this one, I elected to try and go for a shorter path than trying to clear a bunch of nodes out, because there are some links in here that go to Storm. You can see one here coming off Psylocke. You can see one here coming off Star-Lord. And so I was like, I'm going to take the shorter of the paths and just deal with a harder boss fight. And so I'll get to why that was a really bad decision. This Punisher, I think he hit endured on me, so I took a little damage. So keep in mind with him, you've got to be able to deal with his little enduring deal at the end. So from there, I teleported to take this shorter path and take on the Hulk. All these fights in here weren't too bad. The local nodes on these stayed the same as that short path that I took, and I think this one changed. Or no, it was the same. It was the same. So all of those are going to be the same with the optimism and pessimism. The Loki was a joke. I don't even know why they bothered putting him here. I don't know, I hit him like 35 times I don't know. He was such a joke. I hit him with my Scarlet Witch, with my Hyperion, and I evaded his special one like 3 times, and the fight was over. So go in there and punch Loki in the face. this storm was the bad decision. So let me show you why. So she's getting all these nodes, right? She's getting all these on here. You don't really think too much about them because you're like, oh, I'll just deal with them when I get up there because I'm a sweet player and I'm just gonna. Who cares about combo shield? She doesn't. Checkmate doesn't matter with Storm. Well, that might be true. That might be true because she's not gonna. Hopefully, she's not getting a combo of 15 or more on you. If she is, then the fight's over. But you know what does matter? This little guy matters. This little guy matters a lot. So you know what you have to have when you get to Storm? You got to have a bleed immune champ if you're going to leave Electra's node in place. Fortunately, I had Iceman, but Iceman is only at rank 4. And so he is not dealing the ultimate amount of damage that a rank 5 4-star should. And with all this other stuff on her, including the global stuff, I mean, she's a formidable opponent. I mean, she'll hit hard. If you get caught with one of the specials, the fight's over. If you block one of the specials, you're going to take a huge amount of blocking and chip damage with that. So after I realized the terrible mistake that I had made, I healed up Iceman all the way, and I just really focused on baiting out that special one. And it took me 2 tries to get her down. I had to revive and heal 2 full times after I lost 1 champ going in there and bleeding to death. Because that Caltrops, if you didn't read it there, that Caltrops, when you dash backwards, you begin to bleed. And you bleed for 6 seconds. So every time you dash backwards, you start to bleed for 6 seconds. And it's a pretty decent bleed. So you're dead pretty quickly. So if you're going to leave the Caltrops Link node in place to fight Storm, you have to bring a bleed immune champ, or else you can't even be in the fight long enough to get close to finishing it. So lesson learned there, guys. If you're going to do that path without doing Electra for your initial clear, you have to bring a bleed immune champ. Alright, let's get into 5.2.5. This is the chapter that I got destroyed on because, it's funny because I don't think it was Bane that hurt me. I think it was just I was so conscientious of the other nodes. Like, the Bane wasn't really disturbing me too much because I just kept my eye on the timer and built a parry around that. Or backed off on a combo so that by the time it got about 3/4 of the way through, I was beginning another combo. So that's the trick, guys, with the Bane. Let me cover that real quick. With the Bane, you've just got to time it right so that when it expires, you are in the middle of a 3 or 5 hit combo so that you will transfer it right back to the opponent. Now, I did make a mistake on the first few fights because I didn't understand entirely how Bane operated. And I thought if I could throw my 5-hit combo and then end it with a special, that it would transfer, but it didn't. It's got to be direct damage, I think. At least that's how it played when I was doing this. So, you can see it doesn't say anything there in the note. The attacker begins with the effects of the curse. It does. So it's direct damage. It's direct damage. You have to physically hit them. And so energy attacks, I guess, were from like Star-Lord. We're not triggering Bane on the transfer. So so the path I took here, I was trying to find the shortest path with the local node that I could deal with the best. And so I went to Moon Knight and then hung a left and came to here, and then I took B. To take it. This was a little bit longer, but it's really the only options that you have. You've got to work this long path. The reason I picked this one was because the node didn't seem too terrible. It was True Strike. I believe it switches here at some point. Yeah, it switches to Ragnarok up here. So once you clear this node with Captain America and you come up here to the Ragnarok, This didn't seem like a terrible node to me. Stunning this enemy makes them furious. When the stuns they inflict can break even the toughest armor, while the stuns they break it. So I didn't feel like this was a terrible. It basically just means you're going to piss him off when you stun him, which of course the AI, you're going to piss him off anytime you stun him. So you just have to be ready for the AI to ramp up whenever you inflict a series of stuns. So if you're doing let's see, parry 5 hit, parry 5 hit, parry 5 hit, bait, they're going to be pretty pissed by the time they're getting ready to throw a special, so keep that in mind. I did really well against most everybody on here because all these champs are pretty familiar. King Groot, don't get him to his second special. It's just, unless, I mean, even if you have Daredevil in here, I don't know if Daredevil can evade it. I haven't tested that. But just don't get him to a second special. You end up eating a bunch of damage on it, and even if you have Hyperion in there who's poison immune, you just bait out his special one. It's so much easier. The fight might be longer, but trust me, you'll be a lot happier with yourself by doing that. So again, trying to take shorter paths with less enemies on them. I took this path here to Hood and then to the Netflix Daredevil. For some reason, the Netflix Daredevil gave me trouble. Usually he never does, but I think I'd gotten so frustrated at this point with just... it's a long path, and so I think I was just getting a little bit tired and not figuring out the Bane entirely until I got to the end, kind of about halfway through the end of that path. And it's ridiculous because I watched guys play this chapter and show, like, model how to deal with Bane. I watched Grand do it, Grand Scheme do it live on one of his streams, like right after 5.2 dropped. So I was like, man, I thought I was playing this right. And was just, having to dump a bunch more health into champions over and over. But for some reason, this Daredevil gave me a little bit of issues. The nodes he has coming into it, you clear a couple of them on the way in, but I think it was really his enhanced ability, his evade, and those kind of things that got picked up. And then this arc overload. An arc overload triggers every 20 seconds. I don't know if there's really any way around it, guys, unless you've got like a heal block champ like a Civil Warrior or maybe like an OG Vision too, although that doesn't proc every single time. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just punch through it. It's one of those things where it's kind of a buff that you just got to punch through. He's gonna regen. Just deal with it. It's a part of the fun and interactive gameplay on this chapter. But all these other ones, just read through them so you know which ones you're getting into, and then determine also, you don't have to take the path I took. If you want to clear some of those nodes to make the boss fight easier for you, then obviously, take that into consideration. But then also remember that all these localized nodes are bringing their own special flavor to the table. So that's the path that you're going to have to clear if you want to clear that node for the final boss. So okay, on to the big guy, the unit collector himself. Let me switch this up so I can accurately reflect, at least in 3-star, the team that I took in there. So I ended up swapping out, oops, went too far. I believe I swapped out Daredevil for Iceman, and I brought in OG Vision for Gwenpool because I got a power gain with Scarlet Witch. Yeah, that's what I did. Yep. So it stinks that I had to lose Gwenpool on that, but or is that what I did? Yeah, that's what I did. No, that's not what I did. I take that back. Sorry guys. I remember what I did because of the nodes. I kept Gwenpool, and I took out Hype. Oops. I hit the wrong champ. Alright, come on. Yeah, that's who I went in with. Yeah, I remember I did not have Hyperion in there. So the global nodes on this, let's look at these real quick. The global node, again, the role reversal's in place. Bane is in place, and this new one, I don't think it's new to Act 5, but it was new to this section, was the aggressive. The defender's more aggressive and excels in offensive abilities like heavy and dash attack, which you find out is like times 1 million on the collector. So I was researching, right, trying to figure out which path I wanted to take. I had seen guys struggle with the Scarlet Witch right here, so I did not want to have to interact with her because you know, I didn't want to have to interact with her. So I decided to go this route over here, which seemed to be the lesser of all the evils in here, okay? And I wanted to deal with one champion in particular and be done with it, and then kind of the easier fight at the end with Spider-Gwen and her unblockable special one. So I decided to go that route. So I jumped over here to, which one is this? Or no, I had to go somewhere else first, sorry. Yeah, that's what it was. I went up to E first because it has 2 champions on it that don't have local nodes. So you're playing them straight up against the global node. And that's Angela and Falcon, and I handled both of them pretty easily. Angela, be careful. I mean, she definitely is a hard hitter when she has Furies stacked up. So just play around those. Let her dump her specials. Try not to let her build up Furies, and you'll be fine against her. Falcon sucks. Go in there and punch him in the face. That was mean. I shouldn't have said that. He's not my favorite champion. I don't think he's very good. But either way, go in there and punch him in the face. Then you'll teleport down here, and the only fight that you have to worry about, I shouldn't say only fight, you gotta worry about all these. You gotta play well. The localized node on these is the God Slayer. Special attacks benefit from 50% increased critical hit damage. The key with that is don't get hit by a special attack. So, and I joke, that is easier to say than do, right? But yeah, don't get hit by special attacks, and you don't have to worry at all about the local nodes on there. So the only fight in here you have to worry about is Yondu, unless you have a lot of experience playing against him. I don't. He's a newer champion. I interacted with him, you know, for the event quest, and that was pretty much it. He hasn't quite made it into Alliance War for anything, at least in the tier that I play in. So I'm sure that's going to change here in a little bit for people that have him that are in the process of ranking him up. But he's super annoying. You got to have a bleed immune champ or an evaded champ to fight him, in my opinion, if you're not very good against him. And so that's why I had both OG Vision and Daredevil. I think I used, this is embarrassing, I had to use both of them on him to bring him down, and then I had to revive and heal him to get them ready for the collector. So yeah, I sucked against him. Okay, there you go. I died a couple times against Yondu, but he is the hardest champ on this path in my opinion, simply because I didn't have a lot of experience fighting him. All the other ones I did pretty well against, just marched through. There's nothing really special about them except for the global node, right? So the Bane is what you're really that node is what you are doing. What you are competing against in 5.2.6 is Bane. Because the champions aren't real hard, right? Everybody's fought a Black Widow. They know her specials. They know how she moves and all that stuff. But it's timing to keep that Bane curse on the opponent. And And yeah, so this was not a terribly difficult path. It was just a matter of keeping that bane on them so you can save yourself the resources for the collector. So yeah, so when I got to the big guy, this was my strategy. It was to die the least amount of times as possible, because there is no really like super great way to say it, guys. You're gonna die against the collector a couple times, but I'll talk about basically my strategy and what I found to be effective against him. So I did a team revive because I just wanted to get some experience with him, to see how he felt with with champs that I wasn't going to continually revive and heal. And so I went in there with Scarlet Witch and Star-Lord. If you are going to do that a couple times, the tact needs to be parrying off that first one and seeing if his tenacity triggers. If his tenacity triggers, the parry's going to drop right away. The stun parry's going to drop right away, and he's going to come right in with an attack. So if you release your block, you're gonna it's a one-hit fight. Then it's over. He's going to punch you in the face, and it's over. His heavy is a little bit predictable. You can kind of see it coming, so you can dash back and then jump back in for another 5-hit combo. His special one, you can't block it. You have to have an evade champ, a high evade champ like Daredevil, Nightcrawler, Spider-Man Stark Enhanced. Real Deal did a great job kind of modeling that, like how awesome that champion is against the collector. So with my first few champions, I really wanted to get like the feel of what the collector, like what his specials were going to do in real time, right? I've seen the videos of it, but until you're holding the device and you're playing against him, like it's all theory at that point. So with Star-Lord, my goal was to push him to a special 2 as quickly as possible, because you can actually evade that one. It kind of rains down on top of you, and if almost like Iceman's, I think, kind of. So I think it was 2 or 3 swipes back when it starts to descend, you can do it. I managed to do it twice, and then I gave up on it and went to my primary strategy, which was with Daredevil and OG Vision. OG Vision is a star in this fight because of his power control. He, with his synthesis, that's going to proc, and you can just keep power draining him. The issue is, is that OG Vision's not a real heavy hitter. So you're going to go in there, you're going to 5-hit combo, you're going to power drain, your 5-hit combo, you're going to power drain, your 5-hit combo, you're going to power drain. And it just takes a really long time, and you have to hope that in the parries that his tenacity doesn't kick, and then also that his other abilities, I'm not going to run through it now, obviously, to pull that stuff up, but you can check out a lot of other great videos that other great YouTubers have done to see like some of his for example, like when he drops below a certain % health, he becomes unstoppable in certain cases. And so I managed to work him down with Vision to where he was at, and then I died, right? So I lost count of how many times I died, guys. I mean, it was a bunch of revives. I ended up throwing a couple of units at some 40%ers. But it's basically just a fight where you're going to spend some resources, some units, whichever ones you have to spend in that regard. And yeah, that's just the long and the short of it, is that he's going to kill you a bunch of times. But OG Daredevil was great. I could push him to a special 1, and then he would just evade all of it, and I could go back in, push him to a special 1, evade all of it. The problem that I had was both my OG Vision and my OG Daredevil are only rank 4, and so they're not going to be they're not going to have the high health, they're not going to have the higher crit numbers and those kind of things, but they still did great. I was really, really proud with really happy with how they worked out in there. Went in with Gwenpool a couple times, I think, as well, when I had a little health on her from a team revive, just to try and create some quick damage, as much damage as I could in the short amount of time. And she did great, right? You know, you stack a couple bleeds, throw an Incinerate from the special one, knock off a bunch of health on him if you can. You know, just hoping his regen doesn't trigger before you die, because then all that was pointless, right? So, but yeah, that was fun. I mean, it's great to see the game, you know, having challenges in the game, but the other side of it is like that fight is, I mean, there's a lot of BS in that fight. I mean, the buffs that he's pulling, the protection, all these different things. Read all of those when you get to him. Be really conscientious of, you know, what points in his health meter those things are going to trigger specifically, like his unstoppable, because you don't want to be diving in when he's going unstoppable. He's just, you know, it's going to be a one-hit fight, or a one-hit fight from that point on. So, but yeah, I was really happy to be able, that my roster in its current state was able to do that. I'm free to play. I haven't spent any money on this game, and so the fact that I had resources, you know, stacked up for me to be able to attempt this, and that my roster really responded well to a lot of these challenges, I was really happy with. So yeah, I'm gonna go back at some point and go for the full clear. Probably not for a while. I've had enough collector for a while. But I was stoked just to get the title and make me eligible for the daily crystals. And then the 16th, when the new arena crystals drop, I'm going to be taking my shot with right now I'm at about 700k, so I'll be taking a shot hopefully at with around 850, 900k for the 5-star Punisher, which would be really cool if I dropped that in the first week. That would be really sweet. So, but yeah, anyway, thanks guys for sticking it out with me if you've made it this far in the video. Hopefully some of this stuff was helpful. You know, if you're at, you know, similar situation I am in the game, you're free to play, or you're you know, maybe you're not, just haven't been playing as long, you haven't built, you know, a super strong roster of, you know, 10 rank 5s to choose from. Maybe this will help you a little bit, just try and make some decisions if you're going to try and go for an initial clear, and see if you might be able to accomplish that. If you don't have the resources stacked up, you're going to have to spend units, okay? So if you don't have the units ready to go, don't go into this chapter or into this act. If you don't think you can make it with what reserve you have, unit reserve you had, because you're just going to get frustrated if you get halfway through a path and you run out of units. So I'd recommend, you know, reading, read those nodes, read what your champions can do, and then yeah, make a determination based on that. So cool. Thanks again, guys. Hopefully you are all having fun, doing well out there in the Marvel Contest of Champions, and I will catch you guys on the next video. Take care.